Heyo, what's going on, everybody? It is episode number 210 of the Audible Farm podcast. And this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa. It's my favorite coffee. I get it, and I grind it up fresh every morning, and I put it in my French press, and I have fresh coffee every single morning. The coffee, when I order it, it's roasted when I order it, and it's shipped to my house, and you can have something that awesome too. All you have to do is go to couchtowncoffee.com. They have a selection of coffees that are available. You find one you like, you make an order, and they'll ship it directly to your house. And what's even cooler is if you let them know Audible Farm sent you, they will give you 20% off. Why? Because Couchtown Coffee is that awesome. Thanks, Couchtown. This episode is also brought to you by all of the patrons on Patreon. They are donating $1 or more each month to watch the video versions of the podcast, and you can too. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/audiblefarm, and you can donate $1 a month or more, and you can become a patron of the Audible Farm channel. And you can watch the bonus content. The bonus content is the video versions of the podcast. I do little clips of them every week on the YouTube channel, but if you want to watch the full version, they're over on the Patreon, and it's $1 a month. So I got to say thanks to Eric and Vinny and Ronley and Andy and Abby and Matt and Harold and Justin and the McAllister Hours over there doing another podcast, and they are also a patron on our channel. So that's awesome. Thank you very much to the McAllister Hours and all of the other patrons. $1 a month over on the Patreon channel, patreon.com/audiblefarm. This week, I'm sitting down with Brad Hanson. And what's cool about this one is I did an episode with Brad Hanson almost 2 years ago, and about 2 years ago we did an episode, and then I was editing it down, and it just wasn't working out very well. The audio wasn't the best, so we did a second episode, and I've only ever done re-records with people. I think that might have been one of the first ones I ever did that with, and it was unfortunate. It had to happen, but it did. And we recorded over the internet, and it just didn't quite work out. But we re-recorded the episode. It came out. It was, I think, at the end of the year in 2020. Might have been the last one in 2020. Yes, it was. But he's from the area. He's from Iowa, north central Iowa, and he's moved out to California, but he's still making music, and he came back recently. And when he came back, he said, hey, when I came back, there's only a few things on my list of things I kind of wanted to do, and one of them was to be on the podcast again. So I said, hey, man, swing on by. We'll get you on the podcast. So we got to meet face-to-face, and we talk about that. We talk about kind of running into each other at a local show the night before or a couple nights before. And, you know, it's just one of those things. It's a fun, small world out there, and I had a fun time sitting down talking with Brad. He's got new music coming out. We talk about the concept of, an artist not being pleased with their art and, just sitting down and getting rid of it and starting all over from scratch, which is something he did. And we talk about that in depth in here. It's pretty mind-blowing. It's fun. It's a good one. So I'll tell you what, this is just a good one. We sit down and we talk about all sorts of stuff. It's kind of him and I doing our first sit down face to face, kind of just getting to know one another, and talking about his music and his musical process, his journey since the last time we talked. And I think we fill in a few more holes, about his musical journey from his past up until now. So this is a fun episode. I really enjoyed it. This is episode number 210 with Brad Hanson. He goes online by Bradley Allen. That's how he releases his music. So there's links down below. But yes, episode number 210 with Brad Hanson.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Today I'm sitting down talking with Brad Hanson. Brad, you've been on the podcast once before. Technically, kind of twice before.
I'd count twice.
Yeah, you were on once, and I don't remember what happened. Audio didn't work, something.
I think it was my Wi-Fi signal.
Oh,
yeah, having internet trouble.
That's right. It was too choppy, and then we ended up re-recording it and tried to cover all the stuff. And and that was one of those things where I don't remember if we covered everything we covered the first time, the second time through. So if I re-ask a question, I apologize. But yes, so that's kind of like where we're at. The last time we were over Skype, we were thousands of miles away from one another.
Thousands, yeah.
Now we're in the same room.
Finally.
Pretty wild. Pretty wild. It's one of those things. Where did I run into you? Shiny Top before
Shiny
Dodge?
Top, yeah. Clint
Yep.
Riedel was playing up there, and I was like, you know what? I'm super tired, but I'm going to go up. I know at least 10 people are going to be out there that
Yeah.
I know, so.
And that was a wild one because I had recorded a podcast that night and I did something else and then I was like, it was like 8:00 and I was like, I'll go watch the last half hour of Clint play, just whatever. So I went there and there, like you said, there was a bunch of people there, you know.
Yeah.
Jeremy Ober and Vino and all the Fort Dodge area gang was there pretty much to watch Clint play. And I saw you there and it was funny because it's like, I know this guy, you know, and it's, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things when you see famous people on TV, if they walk past you, like, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to recognize Tommy Lee Jones. I don't know why. I'm just like blind to that. So like, it's weird to say that we've never actually met before, but I knew who you were just from seeing you there at the show. So it's kind of cool that, I recognized you and stuff. And we sat outside and talked for a while. So it's kind of cool to finally actually get to meet you, you know?
Yeah.
Coming back to this area to visit, I'm assuming just friends, family, that kind of thing. And
yeah, normally when I come back, it's like with my wife and now my daughter. But this time I was, coming back to pick up a dining table. My wife and I just recently bought a home out in California, and I was like, I'm gonna do as many things as I possibly can while I'm here. And a couple of buddies of mine from high school I hadn't seen in like 13 years decided like, Saturday we'll get together in Des Moines. But I was like, I'm gonna take off like a week and a half, and whoever's playing, I'm gonna go to the show. I don't care how tired I am. I'm just gonna go. Yeah. So normally I plan everything out and I let everyone know like, hey, I'm gonna be at this place. If you guys are playing here, I'm gonna be over here. But I saw on Facebook that Clint was up at Shiny Top, and I was like, I've never been to Shiny Top before, but I'm just gonna go.
Nice.
And I walked in and it was like cheers.
Yeah.
Like everyone stood up. Clint stopped singing in the middle of a song and was like, Brad Hanson. Like, oh shit,
that's awesome. That's so much fun. Drag that mic up just a little closer to your face, just in case. I mean, I can hear you, but just in case, I don't want someone to be like, hey, come on, man. But yeah, totally cool to have, you swing back through town, you show up to a place and everyone, it's just old times, Yeah,
and, for sure.
The old gang is there, some new faces, but it's you still kind of know everyone kind of deal, and
yeah.
It's nice that the Fort Dodge area, like we're talking about, Shiny Top and Fort Dodge, but like it's nice that like the Fort Dodge area has places like that you can go, Shiny Tops and your sneakers, and almost every night of the week there's a certain different place you can kind of go and just kind of hang out with your friends, food, drink, the whole 9 yards. Those kind of establishments exist, and are there a lot of those out in California?
I mean, there are. Where I'm at, it's not really. It's definitely more of a residential area, so I've got to drive a little bit, maybe like a 10, 15, 20-minute drive. But
so like 6 blocks in California language.
Exactly. I'm not a super social person, especially out there, because I don't know that many people still. So I don't really get out other than, maybe going to work 4 or 5 days a week, and then I'm pretty much at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I wanted to do things that were like uncomfortable for me, like anxiety wise, and just fully embrace it and go, it's gonna be fine. So I didn't tell anyone I was going up to see Clint. I just showed up and took a gamble.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And I mean, honestly, that's what I did too. I'm good at the the old, like, was it the Irish goodbye or the French goodbye or whatever the term for all that, nonsense is. I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but it's 2022. Don't pick on anyone. But, I'm good at the Irish goodbye. I'm just kind of like, well, I'm done here. And then I just walk out, I'm good at doing that with the hello too. I just show up to places and I don't tell anyone I'm coming. I feel like that's one of those fun things that's like autonomous though. You can show up and leave when you want to and do whatever you want. 'Cause
Yeah, I hate drawing attention when you go to leave, because then it's like, well, now everyone's got to get up and shake hands and give each other hugs and say goodbye. And it's like, it kind of ruins the flow of the party if you're leaving before everyone else. So maybe we'll say goodbye to like one person and then just dip.
Yeah, it could be like a Key and Peele sketch of like the Midwestern goodbye. Like one person says goodbye, and the whole, like you said, the whole place like record stops, like everybody's like gotta say goodbye to you. And
yeah, it usually starts with like a hand slap on the knees, and they stand up real slow. And
well,
it's about that time.
It's so hilarious. It's like it's totally a thing.
It's very King of the Hill.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I'm sure that's everywhere, but still, it's pretty hilarious. So for those that like might not have listened to the last podcast, like just kind of broad stroking things, you're from the area. You're from the Fort Dodge-ish area. I think Manson, somewhere over there.
Yeah, I grew up in Manson.
And then moved away. You know, you played music over here, had influences. A lot of the peers that I have are peers that you had. So we know a lot of the same people, but you moved away and you're still making music and you still come back to visit. Have you ever thought about coming back and playing some shows?
Yeah, so I'm working on a full length that I'm hoping to have done by December-ish.
Okay.
And then trying to get it all together and a few more cover songs maybe, and come out and do a tour in the spring.
Ooh.
I was talking to Jeremy Ober and asked him about places to play, because I mean he's played
everywhere,
anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean anywhere in Iowa you stand, you throw a quarter, and he's played there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, small towns, big towns, big small towns, small big towns.
Yeah.
Hole in the wall dives, places with stages, places you're in the corner.
Yeah.
He's tried a little bit of every one of them. You know. Bless him. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the things we talked about, was like, he was telling me like, oh, I'll let you know which places that you'll fit in, which is super important for me, because, you know, there's some places I definitely don't fit in.
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing though. That's such a rough thing. And I appreciate the sentiment of Jeremy thinking about that kind of stuff, because that's something I don't feel like a lot of people fit in. It's just, or don't think about it as like whether or not something fits in, because it's like, this venue rocks, I want to play here, and it's like, yeah, but does it fit there? You know, is that what the venue's looking for? Is that what the patrons of the venue are looking for, et cetera?
Right.
And it's such a tough topic to bridge with anyone, you know, like whether you're doing it on a business aspect with somebody who like owns a business, or whether or not you're doing it as a friend trying to recommend places to play. You know, it's tough because we don't all play the same types of music.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of rough, but it is what it is. The fun thing is, though, I'm sure he could pick you a place like in all of the major-ish kind of cities, you know, that are, you know, around the area that he's kind of played in, you know, like pretty much the north central Iowa corridor or anything in there. Like he could pick all the big cities in there and be like, these are the places to play.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Do you play a lot of shows in California then, or is it mostly just studio working? And
so far, it's mostly just been studio working. Right when I recorded the last album, you know, the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, I had just bought a vehicle so that I could tour in it and go across the country, but then everything just sort of slowed down, and then my wife and I ended up getting married. We had a kid. We decided to sell our condo. It took us about a year to find a house, and then another like maybe month or so to like remodel the place because it needed a lot of work. And so I just didn't really have time to sit down and go, oh, I'm going to, you know, pick up my guitar for a few hours and work on writing. It's just like the minute I wake up, it's like time to take care of the kid. Okay, now I got to go to work. And I come back, take care of the kid.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
Then you're exhausted and you're like, oh man, I know it's 8:00, but I'm going to bed.
Yeah. I mean, that was like a topic I bridged in my most recent episode, was just like, I can't believe there's people out there with like families with kids, you know, or like young ones, old ones, teenagers. I don't care. Like that's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
How do you find time for anything? Music, I don't care. Like anything. It just seems like that would suck up all the time.
Yeah. Pretty much no time left over.
And I'm sure like it gets easier and more difficult at certain points in time.
Sure, yeah.
You know, once they can, you know, feed and dress themselves and all that other stuff, then it's a little bit easier, you know, but then it's not too long before they have like all their sports and all their everything else and et cetera, and down the line you go. So,
yeah.
But how do you find time to play music then? Do you just squeeze it in after she goes to bed? She has a daughter?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Usually, yeah, it's usually either after she goes to bed or if I've got a day off, it's usually like in the middle of the week. And my wife, her office space is like at her parents' house, which is only like a 10-minute walk away.
Okay.
So she'll take my daughter with her, and my mother-in-law will take care of her.
Oh, nice.
So that I can have like an allotted, like at least, 4 to 6 hours of like, okay, I'm going to sit down and write and work on some stuff and try some new material and figure some things out. But yeah, she's super supportive of making sure that I have time to work on new stuff.
It sounds like it. And like, I guess like the thing for me, I say it just sitting here, and this might be just me playing devil's advocate or me knowing myself too well. I feel like I would stick to the regiment, but how do you stick to that when you're like, I've got 4 hours in this time span to like work on music? How do you not just, I'm not saying you're going to do it or whatever, but like I would find it hard to just be like, I'm going to turn on some Seinfeld and just eat some Cheetos for like 2 hours out of this. Like it would be tough for me to be like, I'm just going to relax, you know?
There are some days it's tough to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to make a cup of coffee. I'm going to sit down and pick up my guitar because, I've got the wall of video games there in the same room. And it's like, it's so tempting to just, turn the TV on and go, all right.
Yeah.
No interruptions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just one of those things where like I have so little free time to sit down and write that when I do have free time, I'm excited about it, and it doesn't feel like I'm like, grabbing the card and clocking into work or something like that. So it's still fun.
I guess that could be it. You don't ever get burned out by just using all your free time on it regardless anyways. So like for me, I have disposable free time. I have to like fill it up with things like, like podcasting and bands and things like that.
Right.
But like if all I did was join like 70 bands and that's all I was doing, it wouldn't be as fun anymore because that's all I'm doing. But if all I had was like small windows to do it, I'd probably be elated to play the guitar, during those time spans.
I mean, there was a period of time, when I was younger where it was like, I woke up and I played guitar. I went to school and I thought about playing guitar. And then I got home and I played guitar and I barely slept. I would play like until my fingers would bleed and I'd fill it in with super glue, wait a couple of seconds and then just keep playing. But I got bored with it for a while. And there's a stretch of like maybe 4 years where I didn't really pick up the guitar or have any intention of writing. Oddly enough, it was like the first time I moved to California. So I was like in a 1-bedroom apartment on the 7th story. And it was like, well, I'm working to basically live out here. But I definitely think breaks are important to keep things exciting and not like work yourself into a hole.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost it's almost like you're working yourself into being burned out.
Exactly.
And it's more fun to take one of those breaks, I guess, and probably even more productive to take one of those breaks by choice than it is via just like being so burned out you're done.
Yeah.
Like imagine how rejuvenating it would feel if you're like, I'm going to take a week off. That's cool, as opposed to just be like, I can't play another note of the guitar. I'm just going to like nap for a week. It's probably a lot more. Soothing for the soul to take the break if you're going to choose to take the break as opposed to, too much of it. But I mean, that's something that's been a topic on here before too. Like what was a thing that you used to fight burnout before, or was that, never a problem for you?
I don't think I realized it was a problem for me, but I noticed when I was burnt out, I would hit plateaus with my playing. So like I would, I'd be able to play up to a certain skill level and then, just not really play anything else. And then I'd be repetitively playing stuff that I had learned when I first started playing, I've been playing at that point, like maybe 10 years. And it's like, why are you still playing AC/DC Back in Black? Like it's not doing anything for my playing,
It's true. I mean, that actually is honestly a very good point. I believe I've brought it up on other like solo episodes. Was like the feeling of plateauing is it's almost helpless. But I think you've actually like just explained the basic of it all. Is like you almost just have to go just learn something new, regardless of what, like almost regardless of what it is. Irregardless isn't a word, I don't think. Anyways, regardless of what it is, it like doesn't matter. You can just learn something new because you can't just sit there and play AC/DC Back in Black for the 4,000th time, and it's not going to help. It's not going to help you at all. You know?
And I think another thing that helped me not get burnt out so much was like changing genres and skipping around and learning different, you know, jazz or country or blues or whatever. And before I was just strictly playing metal. That was it.
Yep.
And I was one of those young, dumb kids that was like, oh, if it's not metal, I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's garbage.
Yeah. I'm very guilty of that. And man, that's a tough one. That's a tough cross to bear. And I feel like some of us that had that mindset growing up actually turn into some of the most well-rounded musicians. Because, like, what it is like when our guitarists that enjoy metal, I think what it is, at least for me, was like, these people are the most skilled musicians out there. They're the most technical. They can play the most notes, most beats per minute. They're going crazy. They're playing scales and arpeggios and tapping and like the best.
Yeah.
Until you try to emulate bluegrass and you're like, oh, this is hard. You know?
You mean there's no distortion to cover anything up?
Exactly. I'm glad you're going to say it because I almost didn't want to. I was always just like trying to be fancy about it. Like, there's not enough compression on this clean channel. You know, like instead of just trying to be like, I need distortion to cover my mistakes. Thank you. Not to say I'm making mistakes, but 100%. Like once you start going genre to genre to genre, you start to build the appreciation for it as a musician because that was what you built it all over. Like, this is the best because they play the instrument the best. And then you're like, this is actually tough. All the way down to playing blues when you're like, oh, this isn't actually that many notes. You have to play with emotion instead. And you're like, that's not even, you know, and then you have to like learn how to do that and how to bend a note. And you're like, bending a note. Like,
yeah. I mean, Jeremy, when I took lessons from Jeremy for, I think it might've been a year, we were learning a Black Dahlia Murder song, and it was in like C standard tuning or something like that. And I went into the practice room at Reeman's, and you know, we had this little combo amp in there that we both plugged into, and we're like playing the CD and trying to learn it by ear, and then, you know, figuring out the parts because there's 2 harmonized guitar parts, and we were playing on clean, and I was so uncomfortable playing on clean in front of anybody because I was like, you know, you crank up the distortion and play fast, you don't really have to hit all the notes.
Yeah, you don't have to hit. I mean, you have to hit the notes, but you don't have to hit them as cleanly, as precisely.
I mean, if you hit the first note and the last note and they're the right notes, then no one's really going to notice.
Yeah, it sounds pretty impressive when you're playing fast. That's what it is.
To the untrained ear, especially if you're like sweep picking or something.
Yeah.
You know, to the untrained ear, they're like, oh my God, that's so amazing.
This person's the best.
But really, it's like, no, I botched that whole thing and I could have just, you know, palm muted the thing and raked my pick across the strings and you would have heard the same thing.
That's very true, though. The clean channel, it's unforgiving.
So unforgiving.
There's nowhere to hide. I think that's the difficulty with the acoustic, though, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a big adjustment to go back to the acoustic and be like, even if you're playing like blues types of drive on an electric, which isn't a ton, and then you go to an acoustic, you're like, man, there's nothing on this.
Yeah.
Like if there wasn't anywhere to hide on a clean guitar, like an electric guitar, there's less than nowhere to hide on an acoustic.
Absolutely. It's so unforgiving.
So I knew back in the day you played a lot of metal. And how did you transition? Like, what was the first things that you were just like, all right, I'm going this direction? Like, because I'm assuming, like for me, it was like joining a band that played more blues, and it was like, okay, I'll go play some more blues, you know. And then you start to do that, and then you're like, I'll play a country band. It's like, I'll try and add a couple country licks into the arsenal and see what we can do here, you know. And you kind of just go down the line. That's what like my progression was. Did you join a new band, or were you just like, I'm just going to try and play this and see what happens?
I think the first thing that happened was I really started listening to Mastodon and like breaking down all their stuff. And I think it's a track off of their Leviathan album where their guitar player Brad Hanson just throws in a random banjo lick. And it's like on guitar, but it's definitely like a hammer claw type banjo lick, and I was like, man, that sounds really cool. It's like I want to emulate that, so I kind of started picking up that type of style, like more chicken picking and like hybrid picking. And then I moved back to Des Moines and got a job at a music store that shall remain nameless.
All right.
And
I love it.
yeah, there was this one guy that used to come in all the time, and he would constantly buy gear, trade gear, return gear, buy new gear. And I don't remember if it was like a slow period, there was no customers, and I was just like jamming out by myself. But he had a band with a couple of the guys that also worked at Guitar Center.
Okay.
And I didn't really know anybody that well there either. I was stuck in accessories far away from everyone else. And his name is Jason Bordeaux, and he had a band called Bordeaux.
Okay.
And it was like a southern rock, like almost like a southern metal kind of vibe. And he asked me to join the band as a lead guitar player because he just wanted to sing instead of singing and playing guitar. And I was like, man, I don't really have an excuse not to. Sure. And then I started to listen to more like southern rock stuff, like a little bit. I mean, I listened to Lynyrd Skynyrd as a kid, but I never really sat down and learned anything. And then like the Allman Brothers was like super huge for me.
Yeah.
Like listening to Dwayne Allman and Dickie Betts was just like, man, I'd love to, play like that, even half as good.
I think that's the wonderful thing about Allman Brothers. And I mean, like a lot of those southern rock bands, it's like you can, but you can't really emulate this with just one guitar, unfortunately.
Yeah, you really can't.
And that's special stuff going on there. But yeah.
And then from there, there was another guy that worked there, and he knew that that band really wasn't doing anything. I think we opened for this rapper, Jelly Roll.
Okay.
At Seven Flags Event Center.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, the show went fine, but everyone was standing outside smoking while we were playing.
Yeah.
And they were there to see Jelly Roll.
Yeah.
And he was originally supposed to be at Woolies, but for some reason they moved him to Seven Flags because they thought they were going to sell more tickets. And he wasn't as big as he is now.
Yep.
But we were talking to him, and he was like, I know my audience, that I can't sell these tickets. I mean, there were maybe like 250 people there. And
Oh, wow.
they even like closed off half of the venue to make it look like it was more full, and there was nobody there. But
I always love that. The nice little venue tricks like that. They're fun when you go to the shows and stuff.
But yeah, this other cat, Matt James, hit me up, and he's like, hey, do you want to join my band? And I was like, sure. And I didn't really have any other questions besides that. And he was like, cool, I have some songs written. I want to get like a full band going. I've got this pedal steel player. And I was like, wait, pedal steel? I was like, what are we playing? He's like, well, it's like country, but like Americana, but he's like the band or Allman Brothers. And I was like, oh, I could get down with Allman Brothers.
Yep.
So then that's when I really started to like change all of the gear that I was using and get rid of the triple half stacks and narrow it down to like a 15 watt. I think I bought like a Fender Blues Deluxe and pieced together a telly from I think it was like guitarfetish.com. They sell bodies that are finished that are real cheap. And I started basically copying everything that Matt did on the guitar. He's just a phenomenal guitar player. Like the little nuances that he adds in and the chord changes are really interesting, and the melodies that he comes up with vocally, and he's probably one of the greatest storytelling songwriters that I've ever listened to. But yeah, that band got together quick. It was like, I want to say it was like maybe 2 weeks or 2 months or something like that after all of us had gotten together. We had a practice space at the Merle Hay Towers, like above the mall. We could only practice from 5 p.m. until like 7 a.m. or something like that. And we threw a pizza party, and we called it the Secret Pizza Party. And we recorded the 5 or 6 songs that Matt had live on the spot in one take.
Nice.
And that was like our demo for the longest time. And I learned so much about doing stuff like DIY from Matt. Like we came up with like a stamp, and we put the CDs in sandwich bags so that we didn't have to buy like the expensive slip cases. And then hand wrote Live at the Loft on there, and we'd throw in like a random baseball card from the 80s just to spice things up.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we shortly after that we went on tour and did a couple of dates. We started at like the Octopus in Cedar Falls.
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
I think so.
And then we were supposed to play a bluegrass festival in somewhere in Indiana, but that got canceled. So we ended up in Detroit, Michigan for an extra 3 days.
Oh, cool.
Which is where he was originally from. And then back to Chicago at the Livewire Lounge with this band called the Blind Staggers. They're just an amazing band. And then back through to Iowa. I think we played at DG's Tap House, maybe in Ames or something like that.
Sounds right.
And then we really hit it hard and started to record the full length that we eventually put out on Sun Pump Records.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It was called Impromptu Musicals for the Skeptic. And Matt had this awesome idea of all of this audio clips of things in between the songs, and if you play it front to back, it's just one seamless playthrough.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I love that. Sun Pump is that record company. I think they're still going in Des Moines.
in Des Moines. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dan Hutchinson is the one that runs that, and I think he's in Fetal Pig.
That sounds right. Because I know like a lot of those like that like I don't want to say like heavy, like super fast metal type stuff. There's a lot of those types of bands that have been in one form or another over the years popped through Sun Pump Records.
Yeah.
But yeah, it leans a little bit more that genre, but they also like branch out quite a bit into different areas. If anything's unique, usually he's kind of interested in what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely got his finger on the pulse of like the Des Moines scene for sure. Of like, I mean, I think for a while he was putting out mixtapes with like, singles from a bunch of the bands in the area that were really awesome. I'm sure he's got some copies laying around that you could probably pick up.
Cool. That's awesome stuff. I love that kind of stuff. I wish if I had more time, I'd be doing stuff like that in some capacity or another.
Yeah.
But I just unfortunately don't have the time or the energy to do it. Or the know-how, unfortunately, too. I'd hate to just like stumble through something like that and try and figure it out. How much money would you waste trying to figure out a record company? Or even just like a promotional end of it. It would just be like, ugh.
Yeah.
This would be so rough. But that's crazy. I mean, like, you going from one genre to the next, from one band kind of to the next, going out on like a mini tour, coming back. It seems like at the beginning of this podcast, you were kind of talking about like you like going out and doing things and kind of like being outside of your comfort zone and trying new stuff. And this is like kind of just confirming all of that. It seems like, it's just, it doesn't matter like whether or not you're going to go try a different style of music or just play with some new people or go out on a small tour or record a mini demo in hopes of like seeing what may or may not happen out of it all. Going to play a festival in Indiana, even though it doesn't work out, but still like those kind of things. It's like, I would always just be like, I don't know, I got to think about this for a little bit, like I wouldn't just be like, all right, yeah, sure. Why not? Like,
Yeah.
Is this stuff that you just consciously are like, yeah, why not? Why not? Or is it stuff that you're kind of just, you're thinking to yourself, like, I do need to get out of my comfort zone. Let's go try this instead.
Part of it's definitely like, I need to get out of my comfort zone. If you stay comfortable, that's when stuff gets stale and then you kind of get lazy and kind of quit doing things. But honestly, me doing a lot of that stuff was because I was fortunate enough to have other people in the band that were, I don't know if more driven is the word, but had more of a know-how of how to do things. So I never had to really worry about booking shows ever. It was just like, hey, you guys have this date open? Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to play the show here. And then next week we're going to play over here. Cool. See you there.
Yeah.
When's loaded?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I do love that.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I struggle with is having extremely high anxiety is like reaching out to people to play at places, or like even asking people like, oh, hey, do you know anybody in, you know, for example, Milwaukee? Like, you know, whoa, that's one of the more difficult things for me, is like the business aspect of it, you know.
Booking shows in and of itself is something that I'm just 1,000 times over glad I don't have to deal with. I would say of all the shows I've played, 99 out of 100 shows I didn't book. Like, maybe even more than that. Like, I don't enjoy doing it. It's tough. Once you get into the rhythm and you do it, it's just like everything else. It gets easier and stuff like that. You start to book with somebody, you can book with them again. It's not always building a relationship from the ground up every single time.
Right.
But I always feel it's weird where it's just like, I'm so guilty of just underselling myself in everything I do. It's just like, I don't know, yeah, whatever, $20. Yeah, sure, sounds good. You know, when it's like really like a $50 job to anybody that would do it if they wanted to get paid for it. And I'm just like, I don't care. You know, and like whatever it happens to be. So like booking a show, I'd just be like, yeah, pay me like 100 or something. I don't care. And that, you know, even if you're bad, someone's going to pay you $100. Yeah. Maybe. But, you know, it's one of those things where I always just trying to find out where to draw the lines when interacting with people like that. You don't want to shoot a too high a number. They're just going to say no, you know, and if you shoot them too low a number, they might be like, that's the highest I'll ever pay you now. So you got to come somewhere in the nice range. And you know, what happens if there's a problem? You know, it's like, now I got to go back to this person and tell them there's a problem and explain it to them. It's going to be so difficult, you know, like, whether or not you're going to be a full band and one of the members can't come, or you've double booked accidentally, or somebody, you know, you had something come up and now you can't make it to the show, and now you got to tell them like, I'm sorry, I can't, you know, like that's all of those interactions are just like, I don't want to have these interactions with people.
I've been fortunate enough. I haven't had a situation where I've ever had to cancel a show.
Nice.
But I can imagine that would just be super bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in situations where like that has been the case, and most of the time places are nice about it, but like sometimes places aren't as nice about it, and you know, that's a rough one. It's thankfully I'm not the one that's like spearheading all these conversations. It's more like, you know, somebody comes back to the huddle, says this is what somebody said, and we all say do this, and then he goes back and he does it. You know, so like it's I'm not the mediator or anything, but you know, it's tough when you run into those situations, and I'm super glad I'm not the person that has to have their name like on the front of the band to have to do any of that stuff. So hats off to anybody out there doing those hard works. But you're doing all this recording and studio work and things like that, and you do have plans or thoughts or things like that to kind of play some shows out and about. So what is like the next step? Like what is going to be the bridge to go from the studio recording stuff, which we're coming back to talk about that, by the way, to like to booking the shows and doing this stuff? Because I think you had mentioned like your general plan would be to like kind of maybe take some time off in the spring and go from California to Iowa and back or something like that.
Yeah. That hopefully that's the plan. A lot of it is just me needing to get it together and do the work and make it happen. But now, like with COVID, you know, things are getting more comfortable around the country. You know, driving from California to Iowa, I did it in the middle of the pandemic. Like, not even the middle. It was like shortly after the whole thing went. And I got on an airplane and flew, and then drove the car that I bought back to California, and it was a ghost town everywhere. I mean, stopping at a gas station, there might be like one car in the parking lot, and it's like a Love's gas station. And that would normally be packed with semis and cars. Oh man, it was bizarre, man. It was like Nebraska at a Love's gas station, and you're like, where is everybody? Was there like an apocalypse and nobody told me? But then, this time around coming through, it was like, okay, more people are out. And then going out to the shows to see Clint. The following night, I went to Bootleggers to see Ober play. Trevino showed up and played a couple songs.
Nice.
He showed up late and then played the rest of the set. But seeing like how many people are coming out and enjoying live music now because they couldn't for so long, you know? And it was one of those things where I feel like before the pandemic, you had to fight tooth and nail to get like your friends and family to come out to the shows. And now it's like, hey, are you playing? Do you know somebody that is playing? Like, where are they playing? How long are they playing? You know, do they have drinks? Do they have food? So I kind of feel like it's time to hurry up and get it done while people are still interested in going out and, you know, being entertained again.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point. Like I played shows prior to the pandemic and after the pandemic, and most of my shows I'd played was like after the pandemic, believe it or not. But it's different now. There's a lot of people going to shows. A lot of people you wouldn't normally think would go to shows or going to shows. Even if they're just going to like a handful a year, they're still going to shows, you know, which is
absolutely.
It's cool to see. It's cool to see people out there doing that kind of stuff. You were talking about how you just kind of need to get this stuff going and do it, and that kind of leads me back into the studio work. So you have been in the studio, and you have your own studio. We talked about in the last episode. I believe we talked about recording stuff at home and things like that.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned to me that you released let's bring it up here. So you released the last episode we were together was December 31st, 2020. You released an album not terribly long before that, I believe it was. And then you've recorded some stuff since then, and you've had some life changes, married, kid, you moved, etc., and things and now you're coming back and you're finally getting everything set back up and getting ready to do this stuff. But you're talking about possibly scrapping a bunch of the work that you've done and starting over in some capacity. So that is a thing that some artists and or musicians do. I mean, it's not everybody's seen an artist have like a crazy awesome drawing and they don't like the way the hand looks on it or something, and they just crumble the whole thing and throw it away. And it's like, what are you doing? That's kind of the equivalent of musicians doing the same concept. And the best part about musicians is we can store it and save it for later, maybe pull the best parts out, whatever. But what is your plan with this? Is it literally to just delete it all and just start from scratch, or are you going to take skeletons of bits and maybe try to redo them?
So the deleting has already happened. It's gone forever.
It's gone forever.
It's gone.
You didn't save any of it.
Nope, not a lick.
Why? I'll have to be like, what are you doing? But like, external hard drives, man.
Yeah. And the sad thing is I have 2 brand new external hard drives that I haven't opened yet.
Crushing my soul here.
But no, I just am. The way that I look at it is, if I'm not excited about a song that I wrote, even if it's just like a little part of it, just leave it be, move on. If I'm not excited about it now, I'm not going to be happy with it later. And that's not to say that, I'll work on something for 5 minutes and just toss it. But, I sat with those 15 to 18 songs, rough tracks of acoustic and vocals and a notebook full of lyrics. And I listened back and honestly thought, would I be proud to show my friends this? And then when the answer was no way in hell is anyone going to hear this. I was like, you know what? I'm going to delete it, because if I don't delete it, I'm going to get lazy and pull one of these songs that shouldn't be released, and it's going to become filler on an album. And sometimes filler is good, when you need an extra couple of minutes on an album to fill it out. But I came from a place of like albums. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't write a song, you write an album from front to start. And it doesn't have to be like a concept album, like a Pink Floyd thing or anything like that. But with the mindset of, there's a reason I put these songs in the order that I put them. They should be listened from front to back, ideally in one setting on a decent speaker. So yeah, I just was like, nope, I'm not even gonna let it sit on my hard drive. It's gone.
Yeah, it's weird to think. I mean, I get the concept of like, if I save this, I might actually, use it for evil, or whatever. I'm just gonna toss it into something and just fill up some space and whatever, like. I get the concept of that. And I also like the albums, and we're not talking full on concept albums, but like, back in the day, it used to feel like I could, you could put an album in start to finish and it felt pretty good. Most of them did, the classic, all the classic albums, that's what they feel like, Yeah, you can pull a song out and it sounds good by itself, but those songs all seem to flow from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's hard to get that flow if you're just going to slap a filler song in there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the only argument I could say would be like you could slap the filler song in there and redo it a little bit to make it fit what you need, but you're still,
yeah,
you know.
I from EP to album or whatever I've put out so far, they're stylistically different just enough to be not cohesive. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, you know, those 15 songs that I threw in the garbage were like not necessarily the direction that I wanted to go anymore, or felt that it was like, man, this just doesn't fit. Like there's something off about it. Mm-hmm. So it had to be done.
So here's another like concept I want to push past you. So at one point in time, the thought process for what you were doing with that album fit something because you made it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like maybe it was like a year ago, I would have been happier with this than I am now. You've just changed as a person. Like, what makes you think that? And I'm just throwing this out there. Like, do you think there's a lot of music that doesn't get put out just because somebody didn't put it out fast enough? Like, it's like, you know, a year ago, had I put this out, I would have been happier with it than I would have been now. But, you know, like, but I didn't because it wasn't quite done yet. And now by the time it's finished, I don't want to put it out anymore. You know, that's pretty much the gist of what you're saying with the album. So like, had you like hurried up and finished it, it might not have been perfectly polished, but at least it would have been out there. How much music do you think, like, not just necessarily you, but do you think that's a thing that happens to people where they're just kind of like, had they finished it in time, at that time span in their life, they would have been like, I'm okay with releasing this.
You know what? I think there are people that have finished stuff, like Prince, for example. Mm-hmm. He's got a vault full of unreleased albums that no one will probably ever hear, mm-hmm. because he finished it and thought, no one needs to hear this, and then wrote an entirely new album and sold millions.
Also blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to just get profane about it, but like, what a dick.
There are probably hundreds of songs in that
of
vault.
Just like crusher songs, you know,
and collaborations with people that he worked with.
But how cool would it be if that was your only job and you had enough money where you didn't ever have to do anything? And I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, like, you made one album, it's good enough. You make enough money where it's like, I don't have to scrounge for my next meal. I can invite people over. We can hang out. Nobody's going to have to want for anything. And now I've got a building. And this building has like places to sleep and eat and do whatever and shower. But it's also built into a giant studio, which is the main place where we all hang out. We all add stuff. And that's all we do all day long. And whoever comes in at whatever time, like, how freaking sweet would that be?
That would be incredible.
It would be tough not to make music all day long, though.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so I think about like he had the advantage, but he also had the vision to build something like that. And now everyone kind of has that. I mean, to an extent, I have it. I got a laptop and an interface. I got the same thing he has, basically.
Yeah.
Why don't we just all do that? I guess I don't know. But you're doing it. I'm not. I guess. But like, you're making music. It's just, I don't know. It's wild to think that. I mean, you basically just compared yourself to Prince, but like, you know, you're pulling a Prince. You're pretty much just being like, this isn't good enough. I'm throwing it away, which just like crushes my soul. Being somebody that's never completed one song start to finish, you know, I don't even get halfway through a song and I'm like, this is garbage.
To be fair, I deleted mine,
which is wild. Like, you just completely deleted it. It just blows my mind. I don't know. I would want to save it. You're a brave person to do so, but replacement material. What have you done to replace this? Have you started the next step of the way? Do you have another album already written? A couple songs worth?
So I've got a couple songs worth. I need lyrics, which is always the last thing for me because I'm so terrible about sitting down and writing lyrics. And then it's going to be a full-length album. I'm going to rework some of the previous songs that I've put out that I feel like will be a cohesive piece of work, and continue that style so that it's a, one finished entire album. Because most of the stuff I've put out is pretty short. Probably because I have a pretty short attention span. One of the reasons I stopped playing metal is when the song started to get 8 minutes long, but the BPM is 220.
Yeah. I don't have the time span to learn, the sixth bridge of the fourth solo. It's like I'm done.
I'm out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna rework about 5 to 8 songs that I've already recorded and released previously, and then put another 4 or 5, maybe 6 on top of that. I severely upgraded a lot of my equipment too, so the sound quality is just so much different that it's almost the difference of recording on a little Walkman versus, using decent microphones.
I'll tell you what, I've had the argument with people, and I've tried to talk to them, like, I can barely tell the difference between microphones, and this is like, I can tell there's like 3 tiers. There's like this god tier of microphone that costs like thousands, and then there's like anything from like 80 to like $300. My ears can't tell the difference between it. I don't know why. But then like anything below that is like your $20 microphones. Like those are the 3 tiers, and those are the only ones my ears can hear the difference between.
I used to think that way, that I wouldn't be able to hear the difference, but for example, like for the longest time, the vocal mic that I used was like an Audio-Technica AT2020, which is like a very affordable microphone. It's like about $100. Mm-hmm. And it does great. I still use it for like if I mic up my guitar cabs. It's a great condenser mic. But I then bought a Shure SM7B, and then you have to use the cloud lifter for the decibel boost. Yep. And just re-recording a quick demo of a song I already recorded and then playing them side by side, it was like night and day.
Oh wow!
And I don't really do any sort of mixing and mastering too much. I like to set things up to sound the way that I want it to sound while I'm recording, so that I don't have to do a whole lot of that.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, because then by the time you get done and you have to mix and master, you're so sick of hearing those songs and parts over and over and over again that you're like, if I can hurry this up and make it more efficient, then this is going to save me time later.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other battle is like, okay, now I'm going to send these out and have it mixed, and then send it to somebody else and have it mastered, because I think it'll just elevate what I'm able to do in the tiny space and small amount of equipment that I have.
Yeah.
And fresh ears are always good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're talking about like different microphones. Like I've said it before in the podcast, like I started with like some really cheap stuff, because I just, this is like a DIY project, like start from scratch. Like I just have like $20 microphones we're talking into right now, and it sounds good if you're just talking. You don't need anything insane.
Oh yeah.
But I have like hooked up different microphones to this same setup. Like I put some 57s and 58s on here just for fun, just to try them out, and yeah, there's a difference. It's not like huge, but it's right. You can definitely tell. And then that, I guess it stands to logic. If you went, the next price tier up, it's just going to be that much more of a difference, and you just keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'd be able to hear. Plus, I'm sure some are better for voice and some are better for different things depending on what you want to do.
I mean, I'd always love to have a Neumann microphone, for vocals or ribbon mics, but those are so expensive.
Yeah.
That it's like hard to justify. Like if I'm only putting out an album like, once every year or two, like does it really justify a $5,000 microphone?
Yeah, that if you drop it,
game over. And I don't think I own any piece of equipment that would come even close to that microphone. So it's like, if it was a guitar, I could maybe justify it a little bit more where you're playing it constantly. But as somebody who doesn't, like, I don't use my own microphones to go out and play live. So, it's even harder. And I'm sure, you wouldn't take a Neumann out to shiny top or whatever.
How awesome would that be? That's so hilarious.
Yeah, you're just asking to get robbed.
Oh my gosh. Or just unfortunate breaking or something like that.
Somebody spills a beer, bumps into the mic stand.
Oof. Yeah. Oof. Rough.
No bueno.
No, sir. Oh man. So you have released music since the last time you were on the podcast, though. This isn't just coming out to be like, he was on the podcast like a year and a half ago and hasn't done anything since. No, you have released music. You released a single earlier last year. The date I have is like May 18th, 2021. Do you remember what that was called?
Yeah, it's called Wouldn't You Know.
Nice. So this next release that you have that you're planning will be the first thing since that single. Are you going to do single album, or are you going to do like single, just all the way through, or
Oh man.
have you thought anything about like that? Because that's something that I feel like almost every band or musician is starting to do a little bit different. Because I feel like that's one where there's not really any rules anymore with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. You know, I've looked at other bands that I like, you know, look up to or listen to frequently, and I've kind of looked at, you know, what the most popular thing is, and it's usually either the whole album comes out or they'll release a single 1 month and then release a second single the next month, and then the third month the full album comes out. But I'm one of those impatient people that when I've got it done, I just want to release the whole thing and, you know, wipe my hands clean of it and be like,
Yeah.
hey, it's out there.
It's
You
out
know?
there. Go check it out.
Go get it.
Yep. I mean,
So-
there is the argument for that like, yeah, the people that will want to find it will find it. But like, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's got a degree in marketing that's like, that's not the way, you got to do the slow roll thing, once a month thing or whatever, you know, like do it that way. That's the best way to do it. Get, you know, gain some attention before you finally slam it out there. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe, I guess. But it's a lot. It's also a lot of work. You know, you release a single. Do you want to put a music video with? Like, what do you want to do with this? You know,
I think, and I haven't, you know, officially decided yet, but I'll probably put out like one single of a new song that I haven't released yet. I might do like a live video
cool.
of like a playthrough or something somewhere cool, and then release that, and then a month later do the full length, just to garner some attention and get people thinking about it, and then hopefully they end up picking up the full album.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put that one single out, so I feel like you can't put the same single out. That's just bad form. I've also toyed with the idea of taking the previous albums down.
For what reason?
You know, if I'm going to put 5 to 8 tracks of the previous albums on there,
Okay.
it feels kind of weird to have these almost like demo quality recordings out there. And there's some songs that probably one in particular that I wrote when I was feeling particularly angry, and I think it's the only explicit song that I have where I drop an F-bomb, but I don't feel that same way anymore, so it feels kind of weird to even just to hear it on accident, you know, like if I have my Spotify playlist on and the algorithm links up and it comes through, it's like, man, that just does not sound like me at all. But I mean, some of my friends have told me that that's their favorite song, so it's something I'm, you know, considering but haven't made an official decision on yet. But
Yeah, I mean, that comes back to like kudos to like musicians, because musicians that like you that are out there releasing music, it's no different than like an artist like releasing art, and a lot of the musicians are like putting their heart out on their sleeve, you know, and it's like you said, my heart is on my sleeve, and this is a capture of what it feels like at this given time, not necessarily like permanently, but people could identify with that forever, even if you don't.
Yeah.
And then you're at this like weird crux of, do I keep this out there for everyone to enjoy still, or do I get rid of it because I no longer identify with it, you know? And that's a tough one, you know. I mean, it is your music. You can do whatever you want with it, you know. But, you know, maybe that's a situation where you take it down and then you put it on your Bandcamp, and you're like, if you want it, it's there. You can buy it, but like, it's not streamable anymore.
That's actually a really good idea. That's probably the route to go.
I mean, I've recommended a lot of people that have done demos and things like that. Like, once you have something good, just go through all the demos on Bandcamp with the good thing, and then they'll be able to see where you came from to get to that good thing now, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know, and it still gives, you know, your super fans the ability to go out and buy something, you know, and, you know, I enjoy that too, where you can put like a whole album or an EP on there and just be like, it's a whole album, $5. And they're like, $5? And you're like, yeah, or more, whatever, you know, they can give you $7 if they want to, or $6.22, or just like get really weird with it. But I feel like that's another good avenue to go with that kind of stuff. And it just comes right back to like, I'm still just like heartbroken that you deleted a bunch of music. I mean, there's probably gold in them there hills, man. What are you doing?
I will say it was less than 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I don't feel super bad about it.
Man, so when you sit down with time to write music, is it easy? Is it easy to write 30 minutes worth of music, or does it take you like weeks to do that, or does it take you days? Or some days it's like, well, I had 4 hour time block here, and I got 2 songs down, and there's 6, 7, 8 minutes easy, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, it's really hit and miss for me. Like some days I'll sit down and I'll hammer out like maybe 6 songs, and I might not use them all. But some days I'll sit down and I won't get anything. Or if I do write something, it might sound too similar to something that I recognize from somebody else's song, and I go, no, I'm not. I've got to put it down and come back to it later. And sort of do like a mind cleanse and listen to a podcast or something. But yeah, most of the time it takes me quite a while to sit down and work through a song. And it's a lot of like, I might come up with like, you know, a verse or a chorus part on the guitar, and then I'll record it on my voice recorder phone app or whatever, and then I'll take off to work, and then on my lunch break I'll sit with my headphones and listen to it and like maybe write some lyrics down in my phone, and then when I get back home from work I'll get my guitar out and go, okay, this is the first verse. I kind of have some words for the chorus. Maybe I can, you know, figure out where to go from there, chord wise and melody wise. And 9 times out of 10, that's usually how it goes. It's a long, dragged out battle.
I mean, like, kudos to you for having the ability to, like, I guess, chisel out this thing that works for you, to be like, I'm going to do a little melody here, and then I'll listen to it later, and I'll put some lyrics here, and then I go back over here, and I sit down and listen to both of these with a guitar, and I add some more lyrics, and this part can kind of go in here. I mean, it's wild to think that it's like that. It's like an all-day process almost, you know, like but it's not like you're working all day at this. You're taking like a little chunk of the day here and a little chunk of the day there, and it comes back to, you know, you're a dad, you're busy all the time, you know, you don't have all day to do stuff, you know, in between the bites of sandwich, I'm listening to this, you know, and it's crazy to, you know, now you're just making me feel lazy, because I'm just like, I'm too busy to write music. I just don't have time to do it, you know, and it's like, you got plenty of time if somebody with a kid has time, I feel like, you know, because like we said, all your time's taken up. So is this something you've always done while you've been writing music, or is this like a pattern or like a thing that you've kind of figured out, like to get these little bits of shells of partials of songs and then kind of sit down and finally like, all right, let's hash all this out and kind of see what is like, these two I can merge together into one song, but this one doesn't fit here, so these are still 2 separate, you know, you write 2 separate songs from, like, how long did it take you to figure out this was a pattern that worked for you?
Oh man, when I started and I was writing songs, you know, like metal songs, a lot of that stuff was like sit down in one session. And I co-wrote a lot of that stuff. So I had somebody to bounce ideas off of. So it just goes faster. But when I'm sitting down by myself, I don't have the attention span to sit there for, you know, I mean, 4 hours is like a max.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fiddling around and putzing around in between that. But it was just sort of one of those things where like, maybe I sat down for 4 hours and only got like, you know, 1 verse part done, but I'll record it and then go listen to it. And I think it's just sort of like using different methods of writing to finish a whole piece. Because if I just sit there with my guitar, you know, I'm probably going to get a verse done, and then I'll start playing a cover song or something and get distracted. Or
that's true.
You know. But if I break it up and I'm like, okay, I've got this part. A lot of it is like, I have to get a part done and then get the guitar out of my hands to write the melody and the vocal lines, because otherwise I'll just sit there and screw around on the guitar. So it's taken about 10 years to figure out how to distract myself into getting work done.
That's hilarious. Distract yourself to do the work, not to distract yourself from doing the work.
Yeah. Or like since my daughter's been born, you know, like for about the first year, you know, we'd rock her to sleep a couple times, you know, 2 naps a day or whatever, and then at night. And a lot of the lullabies that I would sing her were songs that I was working on, like working my way through. And my wife would be like, "What are you singing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just making stuff up." She's like, why don't you sing a normal lullaby? I don't know any. And I've got to get writing done.
Maybe that could be your next thing. You're writing lullabies for children. You got a whole album of lullabies.
Yeah, Anthony Green put out an album. He's a songwriter that I really look up to, and he put out basically a kid's album, and he has like a song like a bedtime song and like a song about making a sandwich with a bunch of ridiculous ingredients. And he was just bored during the pandemic and was like, I think it's called something like "Let's Start a Band" or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Music should be for everyone, and that's kind of beautiful stuff. I love that kind of stuff. Those oddball albums where it's like, why would somebody write this album? It's like, because it's fun. It's fun, you know?
My favorite is like looking at the liner notes of an album and seeing how many albums Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers shows up on, like not playing the bass.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of weird stuff like that in albums you can actually find. Flea and or Red Hot Chili Peppers. There was a long period in the 90s where like 311 was mentioned in a lot of people's liner notes for some reason. Like, I don't know why, but just goofy stuff like that where you're just like, huh, all right. But that's those, like we said, that's those people with, we got studio time for 3 months at this place. Everybody just swing by and say hi if you want to, because we're recording stuff, you know, and they can come in and play a tambourine on a song and wham, liner notes, you know. You never know. So if you need any tambourine done on the new album, I'm looking for some liner notes. I got most of the notes that I've written down. It looks like we've gone through. Was there anything that I didn't mention that you want to mention?
Not that I can think of.
All right.
I think we pretty much touched on everything.
All right.
I might have a couple of surprises on the album.
Ooh.
There's some stuff being talked about. With a couple of people. But we'll announce it when the time is
cool.
Time is right.
That's awesome. That sounds really fun. So cryptic messages. Yes. But keep a lookout. You've got the same social medias as last time, maybe?
Yeah. It's at Bradley Allen Music on Instagram. I think it's just Brad Hanson on Facebook, but I think I have a music page on there as well. Yeah. I'm really bad at doing the whole social media thing
let's look it
keeping up with it.
Now. Let's see what we get here.
I have a Twitter. I don't really use it.
Yeah, you are Bradley Allen. It is, well, the links will be down below. But it's Bradley Allen 09 on Facebook for the Facebook page. But
yeah.
Links are going to be down below. So make sure you check that out, because that's where you're going to be announcing all your you're going to be decrypting your cryptic messages.
Yeah.
There.
And I've still got some t-shirts for sale.
Nice.
So just get in contact with me on one of those social media sites, and I do the whole Venmo thing, and I'll ship it out wherever.
Nice.
In the U.S.
Yes. Continental U.S., ladies and gents. I'm going to get a shirt after this podcast is over. So, yeah. I just got to say thanks again for sitting down talking with me. It's great to sit down and like actually meet you face to face. It's like so weird because you and I have a lot of people in our friend groups. It's very, very overlapping. So
yeah, it's almost insane how we haven't either run into each other or met before. Even
in the Des Moines scene.
Yeah.
Like, because you spent a lot of time down there when I was first going down there playing a lot of music and stuff. And I mean, hell, even last night I was in Des Moines and you were in Des Moines.
Yeah, and I had no clue. And I ran into like 4 people from the Des Moines scene that I was like, man, I haven't seen you since, I lived here. And it was crazy. It was crazy. And the friends I was hanging out with were like, how come we live in Des Moines and we walk into any bar? So, I mean, we went to 6 different bars and I knew at least one person in every bar, and they're like, this is ridiculous.
That's hilarious. They live there and don't know anybody. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And here you are like, I'm an anxious person. I don't really hang out and talk to people, but somebody everywhere you go. It's so awesome. I love it. Well, Brad, thanks for sitting down and talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Yep. Always a pleasure.
Another great episode. It's great to sit down and talk with Brad Hanson. I'll tell you what, it's just wild that our paths didn't cross ever really in the past that much. You know, other than doing the podcast, that's pretty much it. But we have there's so many people and peers and bands and things like that in our past that are in common. You know, I was in the Des Moines scene. He was in the Des Moines scene. I was in the North Central Iowa scene. He was up here. You know, then it kind of, you know, changes from there. But still, it's just wild to think that we've never really ran into each other before. But yes, I'm excited for new music from him. I've been listening to a couple of his songs here recently, and it's just been really kind of, you know, got me itching for more of that. So I can't wait for more to come out. It's going to be great. I talked about it just a tiny bit in the intro, and we talked about it in the last episode, but he goes by Bradley Allen. There's links down below. That's his name online. So I mean, I probably should just title the episode Bradley Allen, but you know, it's just one of those things where, whatever, the links are down below. It's easy to find with the links, so just go click on the links. You'll be able to find the music pretty much anywhere. So that's where it's going to be at. Bradley Allen. I found it really easy on Spotify. Bradley Allen, just spelled as such, down below. So check that out. All the links for that are down below, so you won't miss out. Make sure you go on there and you find the social medias and you click follow or you click like, and you make sure you stay in contact, and so you don't miss out on the new music, because you're not going to want to miss out on the new music. It's great. I dig it. I really do dig it. It's great music, and you know, it's just fun to sit down and talk with him. It's great to have a new friend. You know, it's somebody that everyone, you know, there's so many people I know that are friends with him. So it's like, well, you know, hey, it's like when I showed up at Shiny Top, there's like a table full of literally like 10 people, and he knew all of them, and it's just like, wow, cool. You know, like this guy knows everyone I know, and somehow we know each other, but we barely met each other. So that's another one thing. The podcast is fun, and you know, and there might be people that are like, well, you try to interview Iowa musicians, and Brad lives in California and whatever, but yeah, I'll make an exception for Brad. You know, he's really good buddies with a lot of my buddies, and you know, maybe that's nepotism, but it's justified, because Brad's a great person. He's just such a great person, and I had a blast sitting down talking with him. So I just want to say thanks to Brad for taking time out of his day and driving up to my little mini studio up here and sitting down talking with me before, during, and after the podcast. I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. So safe travels on all his journeys, because I know he's one of those people that likes to get out there and do stuff and travel around, and he's not shy of that. So it's just fun. It's refreshing, you know, to know people are out there willing to get out of their comfort zone and do things like that, because I'll tell you what, those are the people that can write books about their lives, and someone will be willing to read it, and that's Brad Hanson, ladies and gentlemen. So this is gonna be a fun one. Check out all this stuff online. Thank you, Brad, and thank you everybody for listening to the episode. If you're looking for more Audible Farm stuff, it's all at audiblefarm.com, and you can find a link there to the shop.audiblefarm.com, and that'll show you where you can find the hoodies and everything like that. It's the good stuff, the hoodies. It's getting cool out. It's time for hoodies, so might as well snag yourself a hoodie. So they came back in stock. There's not going to be too many of them left in stock. Once they're kind of gone, I'm not sure I'll restock. I keep debating getting a different style or a different something coming in, but we'll see. There are hoodies for now, so check them out, and hopefully I'll get more in stock when they sell out. It won't take me 2 years like it did last time, but yes, otherwise, the Patreon channel, I mentioned it in the intro. It's $1 per month, patreon.com/audiblefarm. Video versions of the podcast are available there. If you want to give more than $1 per month, you're definitely, you're able to, but it's only $1 per month. You can watch all the video versions of the podcast, and thank you to all the Patreon patrons out there watching the video versions. I really appreciate that. Otherwise, find us on all social medias. Tell your friends about the podcast. If you find an episode you like and you think somebody will listen to it and they'll really enjoy it, or if it's a buddy of yours, or if you're one of Brad's friends and you're like, hey, this was a great episode, I hope all my other buddies listen to it, just send them a link to it. There's a share button wherever you're listening to this. Just boom, click it, share. Hey, check this out. Love it. So yeah, appreciate it, and I'll check you guys next week. Peace.